Welcome everyone to another video games pickup video, and this is, of course, November 2025, the Black Friday edition. Now, I got a whole lot of games. Now, these also weren't only from Black Friday. This is, of course, through the course of the month. However, a majority of them were Black Friday pickups. A bunch of my retro games, though, were early November, and that's what I want to get into first, because I got some gems of retro games this month. And with last month me saying that I was able to fix my 2 Game Gears, I felt like I had to pick up some more Game Gear games. So first and foremost, we're talking about Land of Illusion featuring or starring Mickey Mouse. Now I think this is kind of like a spin-off of Castle of Illusion or World of Illusion. I think it's Castle of Illusion. I'm probably wrong, but Land of Illusion, when I looked at it, I felt like this was a game that I had to get for the Game Gear. It seemed like a killer app. You know, it was one of those Game Gear platformers that seemed cute, charmy, all those good things. So of course we had to pick it up. Now, I just mentioned it, and I kind of was right, but also for the Game Gear, and I'm surprised they came out with this version, is Castle of Illusion. Again, Castle of Illusion is a classic Disney/Sega game, with the more prominent version being the Sega Genesis version, but having this for the Game Gear, I think I'm really going to enjoy it. Now, I was intrigued by some of these games because they came with the little plastic cases, and I love these for the Game Gear. So I also picked up this. A game that, well, I felt like I needed it. And this is Shining Force, the Sword of Hyjah. Shining Force, a very classic tactical RPG series. I felt like it would probably go hand in hand with the Game Gear. I wanted to get a lot of RPGs this month for the Game Gear because I feel like handheld RPGs are a very underrated genre. And, well, personally, I just love them. Pick up and play and spend hundreds upon hundreds of hours into them sometimes, if not tens of dozens, right? I love my classical RPGs. But to get off of that for a second, another classic game for the retro gaming community in itself, not just the Game Gear, but also the Genesis, the Master System, the arcades, I picked up Fantasy Zone. Fantasy Zone is a fun kind of arcade-style shoot-'em-up. I think it's one of the earliest ones, too, that still to this day gets recognition. Had to get it. Now, I picked up some repro games also, which are kind of interesting because these are games that were only out in Japan. And I'm missing one, but I don't know where it went off of to. So we'll get to that in a second. Now, these were translated to English fans translations and then put on carts, but the carts are very different than traditional Game Gear carts because they're like a reddish hue. So after watching YouTube videos of it, I felt like I had to get them. And this is Aleste 3, another kind of shoot 'em up if I'm not mistaken. It looks super cool as I was looking at it. And this one I had never heard of before, but it looked cool. It looked like one of those classical RPGs, and it's called Sylvan Tale. Again, the Game Gear for me is very interesting because graphically, it just looks like a very capable system, and playing the games on it makes me feel like I'm playing a 16-bit game when it's like an 8-bit system. It's like, feels like a step up a little bit from the Master System, but not quite the Genesis, at least in my own opinion. And also, well, this one I had to get, because it's an SMT game that only came out in Japan. However, there was a fan translation, and that is Shin Megami Tensei Last Bible. I think there's a Last Bible 2 as well, but I felt like if there was an SMT game on the Game Gear, I had to have it. Now, let's go into the last little bits of Game Gear games that I got for this month, just so we can continue to move on with it. This one, I didn't even know had a Game Gear version, but it's a classic, and that is Battletoads. Now, many people know Battletoads for being a difficult game on the NES. Turns out there's a Game Gear version, and I'm excited to play it. Oh no. This was... Yeah, so this was the game I thought I was missing. And it is Shining Force, I think it's Gaiden? The Sword of Heimja, or whatever it's called, is like the English version of this game. This wasn't a Japanese-only translation. However, when I first ordered it, I ordered the Japanese version by mistake. Which is funny because apparently the Game Gear was not region locked, so I popped that in and it actually did play, and that was very kind of cool for me. But going more classical, I picked up Sonic Chaos. Now, this is apparently the second Sonic game on the Sega Game Gear, and the Game Gear had a whole host of like different Sonic games that really, aside from collections, never made it elsewhere. And yeah, they're in collections, but they're kind of candid just to the Game Gear is what I'm trying to say, which is kind of cool. Now, being the nerd that I am, I had to get some wrestling games. So I picked up WWF Raw, which I played this game on the Genesis. I played it on the Super Nintendo, so to have a Game Gear version for it is cool, right? I found that game very fun for the time it was released in. And, you know, it wasn't a spectacular wrestling game by today's standards, but it was definitely fun. And with that being said, I got WrestleMania Steel Cage Challenge. Again, didn't really know that was a game until I saw it on the Game Gear list, and of course, I had to get it. Now, the last Game Gear game I got for this month was another classic, Defenders of Oasis. I'm excited to play this. I was watching gameplay footage for it, and I just feel like I'm really going to enjoy it. Now, with the Game Gear stuff out of the way, let's get into this other chunk of mess. So, starting off with some Black Friday pickups. These were relatively cheap, but I felt like I wanted to expand my Nintendo Switch collection, so I got Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. This was like $15 on Amazon. With that being said, well, let's go to the Switch stuff. I picked up Star Wars Outlaws. I know not much about this game, but I feel like I'm going to play it. And then a game that I really didn't think I was going to pick up, but I ended up doing so, and I'll tell you why. Now, this is Raidu Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army. I have the PS2 version of this game, which I believe is Devil Summoner, and I haven't played it yet, but I really wanted to play it because it's one of the more expensive PS2 games, and there's Devil Summoner 1 and 2, and I bought those, and then this was announced like right after, and I was so mad at myself because I spent that money. So I said I wasn't going to buy this, but then that price point just looked good. Now, just because it was Black Friday doesn't mean I was going to stop buying Switch 1 games. So I picked up a game called The Messenger. Now, usually when the new console comes out, I stop buying previous gen for a while. And that's just kind of to sink my teeth in the newer system. But as you can see, I'm a retro game nerd anyway, so it never really lasts long. Now, The Messenger looks like an old school kind of Ninja Gaiden game. I'm not sure if it is, but I think I'm going to like it. And I'm not much of a FPS guy, but because it was on sale, I decided to pick up Battlefield 6. Now, Battlefield 3 was one of my first PS3 games when it first came out, and I enjoyed it. I thoroughly did. And I haven't really played any of them since. So hopefully Battlefield 6 is worth the purchase. One game that I know is worth the purchase. This was not a Black Friday pickup, but it was one I've been trying to get to the collection for a while. And I finally was able to get a good deal on it. And that's Sonic Adventure 2 for the Sega Dreamcast. Now, I have Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for the GameCube, and I've had it for about 20 years now. But I always wanted the Dreamcast version because it's the system the game was developed for. So having it and it being one of the last, if not the last, Dreamcast game released here in the States, I had to get it. Another game that is about 20 years old, but this is a remastered version, and that is Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. I remember playing this with my cousin on the 360 when it first came out, and I know they made some changes to this game compared to what the original version was, but I never really got the chance to own the original Dead Rising, and it's going to be cool to have it finally. Let's go back to some retro games real quick, because I picked up this, and this should have been in the October Games pickup video. It didn't come in time. It came in the day later, and that's a game called Flink for the Sega CD. This looks like a weird, kind of quirky little platformer. Again, trying to build up that Sega CD collection, had to pick it up. One of the games, though, that I had seen nothing about, but it was on sale and it looked kind of creepy, is a game called The Silent Swan. Now, the back of this says, the definitive narrative experience that transports you through landscapes and cities by combining a walking simulator with open levels. Now, again, it looks dark, it looks weird. I'm all for this. Let's go back to some retro Sega games, too. So, for the Sega Saturn, I picked up WWF In Your House. I own this for the PlayStation 1, and I really didn't even know there was a Saturn version. I need to stop talking so fast. But with the Sega Saturn being the 2D powerhouse it is, I felt like I wanted to get this, to have it to the collection. And, you know, In Your House and WrestleMania the arcade games are just two fun wrestling experiences. Speaking of a wrestling experience, for the Sega CD, I picked up WWF Rage in the Cage. Now, this also looks very similar, or it kind of looks like a mix in the back from like the WWF Raw style and a mix to like early WWF arcade. So that's going to be cool. The roster on here is early 90s. You got the Nasty Boys, you got Fatu, you got Randy Savage, Tatanka, Shawn Michaels, Big Boss Man, Bret Hart, The Undertaker, and the list goes on. I think I'm going to really enjoy that game. Another game I think I'm going to really enjoy, that's a classic, is Eternal Champions. Now, this is a fighting game that came out, I think, on the Genesis as well, but I felt like I needed the Sega CD version just to have it in the collection. Now, I think the rest of these are predominantly Black Friday pickups, starting off with some of the Nintendo sale, because Nintendo had some decent deals this Black Friday, so I picked up Princess Peach Showtime, which I didn't think I was going to like this game, and I haven't played it yet, so I really don't know, but after watching some gameplay footage, it actually looked pretty cool. Now, another game that I have on the original system it came out on, but I needed the Switch version, Paper Mario, The Thousand-Year Door. One of the greatest Paper Mario games. It was time to bring it home. Now, this game I was always iffy about, but the price point, it talked to me. And that's The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I don't know if I'm going to like this. It's the 2D style of Legend of Zelda game, which I'm all for. However, it has like some weird mechanics to it, like a building mechanic, and I'm not usually good at those type of games, but I'll give it a shot. With the holidays here, this game was on sale, and it's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Now, I love the original claymation film of this, and I didn't even know they had a game. This game apparently was originally on the Wii, and they've just brought it forward. Even if it's bad, I think I'm going to enjoy it, let's be honest. This series, I have a love-hate relationship with. And that's Tomb Raider. But last year, I bought Tomb Raider 1 to 3 remastered. So this year, I had to buy Tomb Raider 4 to 6 remastered. I've never beaten any of the original Tomb Raider games, and I am intent with these collections to finally do it. So this one was on my eyes radar. Another game that's been on my eyes radar, since it came out a little over a year ago, is Stellar Blade. I have been wanting to play this, and it was on sale, so it was time to finally get Stellar Blade, and I'm excited to play it. Now, the next game, I had never heard of, but it looked kind of cool, and that is Lost Souls Aside. Again, I don't really know much about this game. My version came, like, open with a yellow sticker on it, so I don't know if this is, like, beat up or whatnot, but it looks kind of cool. It kind of looks like a Final Fantasy. like a modern Final Fantasy. So that's going to be fun to play. Another game that's going to be fun to play is Tekken 8. I haven't played a Tekken game since the PS2. I felt like might as well get back into it. This one, though, next game, and I know I'm kind of rushing through this because I'm not trying to make a super long video. I got a lot of games this month. I've been wanting to play this since it came out. I was waiting for it to go on sale. And that's Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. I know this game is going to be goofy. You play as Goro Majima, and he's just a very eccentric character in itself. So I feel like I'm going to be laughing so much with this game. Speaking of laughing so much, just when I thought I was done with all my Black Friday shopping, I decided to take up Digital Press in Clifton, New Jersey and Springfield, New Jersey's yearly Black Friday sale. Because you shop at both stores, you get one heck of a discount. And I picked up these games not knowing anything about two of them. And the first one we're going to talk about is Chaos Field for the GameCube. Now, this looks like a spaceship shooter, but it kind of looks super cool. Another game that kind of looks super cool is somewhat of a shmup, and it's for the TurboGrafx 16. It's called Deep Blue. Apparently you're some kind of like underwater vessel fish thingamabobber, and it's like a shmup. TurboGrafx has some interesting games, and I just love adding to that collection. I never thought I was going to buy this next game for the Nintendo DS, just because I totally forgot about it. And when I saw it on the shelf at Digital Press in Springfield, I knew if I was going to buy anything there that day, it was going to be this game. And that is Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor 2. Now, what's different about this game is instead of just being like a regular JRPG, it's actually like more of a tactical RPG. I've never played either of the Devil Survivor games, so this one should be interesting. Going back to the PlayStation 5, I picked up a game called Lost Records Bloom and Rage. Now, this is made by Maximum Entertainment. It looks like it's a very narrative-based game. And for me, sitting down and being told a story just always keeps my mind off things. A game that I think is going to be super fun, too, is Pac-Man World 2 Repack. I had Pac-Man World... No, I'll still have it on Pac-Man World 2 on the PlayStation 2. It was one of my early PlayStation 2 games. And to be able to go back and play this again so many years later, it's going to be exciting. For the Nintendo Switch 2, I added Little Nightmares 3 to the collection. Now, I played Little Nightmares 1 and 2, and I thought they were very dark, very charming at the same time, and just very interesting games. The art style's cool. The stories are usually interesting, so the third one I'm excited to play. You know, I've been bringing up my childhood quite often during this video, and this one it's just going to bring me back. I know it is. And that is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. Now, this looks like an old school kind of arcade fighter, like almost like the Simpsons arcade game. But with that Mighty Morphin Power Rangers style, I'm excited to play this and be brought back to the 90s. Another game that really caught my eye was this game. It's called Gravity Circuit. It looks like an NES kind of... almost like a Mega Man to an extent, right? Let me show you the back. It just has that old school Capcom charm to it, it looks like. And I think I'm really going to enjoy this. Now, the next two games are the final two. One of them is The Thing Remastered. Now, apparently The Thing was a game that came out in the early 2000s. I think it was like a PC game. But apparently they've remastered it. It looks kind of cool. It looks kind of creepy. And I think I'm all for it. Now, this last game is a game, again, I had never heard of. But just seeing the art style and just seeing like that old school vibe to it, I'm excited to play this. It's a Metroidvania game, and it is Vernal Edge. I know nothing about it, but it looked cute, it looked charming, and I had to get it. So, guys, that was my heaping hump of Black Friday / November games. A lot of retro games, a lot of Game Gear, some Sega CD, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, TurboGrafx even. I kind of went all over the place with what I bought this month. If you've played any of these, of course, leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. Until next time, game on. See ya. Bye.